Hey, KU sports fans, welcome back to KU Sports Extra. I'm Gary Bedore, and I'm joined by Gary Bedore, and we're going to talk...
We wish, you wish.
Three Stooges, Chicago White Sox, Chicago Blackhawks.
And I dream of Jeannie.
And I dream of Jeannie. That's what this episode is going to be all about in honor of Gary, the man, Bedore. Good with you?
I'm great with that.
All right. Now that we're done with that, let's move on back to KU Sports Extra. Big 12 tournament week, and that is absolutely the good news. After an amazing regular season where it was just night after night after night, awesome matchups, big games, Texas, Baylor, Iowa State, Oklahoma, Kansas, Texas, Kansas State. I mean, every night there was a game worth watching in this conference, and now we've got the conference tournament. I think it's going to be the best tournament that we've seen in a long time, at least Big 12 tournament-wise. It's always good in Kansas City, even if the teams aren't that strong, but this one is going to be remarkable.
Well, every single year I say to myself, all right, the real title, Big 12 title, has already been earned, and the NCAA title is in the distance a little. Let's just get this over with. And then I go there and just thoroughly enjoy the competitiveness.
Yeah.
It's strange. I think pride brings it out in these guys, and they know it's the final tune-up before the real big dance. So
yeah, well,
I
thought
put their dancing shoes on.
Very cool what Bill Self said about it too. When you asked him about that at the press conference earlier this week, he said flat out, whether we won it outright or if we ever tied with Texas or K-State, our guys always said, okay, we tied, now let's go settle it and see who really is the champion. And each time, KU took care of business. So no wonder he said it. But it was cool, and it shows what this tournament means to people and to these teams and to these programs and to Kansas City. It's just an awesome event. It looks like the weather's going to be good. You guys know that. It's worth going over to, even if you don't have tickets, just to soak up the atmosphere around it. It's going to be phenomenal. Some of the matchups are going to be incredible.
The tickets can be easy to find if you get the losing team that has a pass for the whole weekend, especially if there's an upset. And
Sure.
I mean, I don't know exactly how that works, but I think it's not that hard to get tickets.
No, if you want in, you can get in, definitely. Yeah. But let's look at this. A quarterfinal game, Oklahoma, Iowa State.
That's pretty darn good. But don't forget, Iowa State doesn't play any defense, so maybe Iowa State is not that unusual for a quarterfinal game against a really good team like Oklahoma.
Yeah. Just a great list of matchups. Obviously, it starts Wednesday night. Those aren't the best matchups. K-State, Oklahoma State, and Texas Tech, TCU, even more, So once you get those out of the way,
and then there's Nyang.
Yeah, Nyang.
George's. Is it George? Is it George's?
George, but with an S, silent. All right, what's the bad news, Tom Keegan?
The bad news is that David Beatty has decided that he's going to call the plays. He has more than enough on his hands as a head coach of an 0-12 football program. There were times where he needed to call timeout to decide whether to punt or kick a field goal or go for it. First-year head coach. He prematurely kind of put all this extra pressure on himself that he didn't need to, but we'll leave it at that for now, and we're going to have an entire separate KU Sports Extra on this topic of David Beatty making that decision, but I view it as bad news.
That qualifies then. Let's jump into Breakdown Street and talk a little bit more about the matchups that we'll see in the Big 12 tournament. As I mentioned, Oklahoma-Iowa State is the 3-6 matchup. Texas-Baylor is the 4-5 matchup. Kansas, if they get by their first opponent, which will be the K-State-Oklahoma State winner, will play the winner of that Texas-Baylor game. And then you've got West Virginia as the 2 seed. Right there, whatever happens on Wednesday night, those are going to be some phenomenal matchups. And who do you like as a hot team coming into this thing, other than Kansas?
We'll give them 1 minute to get their bracket and a pen and pause us. Okay, you're back.
That was
all right.
Quick minute.
I'll give you the winners right here. Give me the game and I'll give you the winner.
Fair enough. Kansas State, Oklahoma State on Wednesday night, number 8 versus number 9. Go.
No Juwan Evans means no chance for Oklahoma State. K-State has been horrible in close games, just as Illinois was horrible in close games when Bruce Weber was the head coach. I think there's a composure issue there.
What do you mean?
I don't think
What do you mean?
I don't think this will be a close game. And way to make fun of a guy's voice when he had an injury when he was a kid.
I wasn't making fun of it. Just emulating. The only thing I didn't do was get on the court and scream because there is no court here. Otherwise, I would have been.
He does get on the court. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I really wasn't making fun. To be fair.
No, I know. And K-State will beat Oklahoma State just because you and your 4 sisters could beat Oklahoma State.
I agree.
Or your 4 brothers.
Yeah, fair enough.
These got to be careful here.
Equal opportunity. I agree. No, I think so, and I think K-State will have a bunch of fans there, and the juice from their environment, their atmosphere.
Can you imagine those fans though if they lose to Oklahoma State?
Man.
What will be their chant? Bruce must go.
Yeah, no kidding.
Bruce must go. Bruce must go.
Don't sleep on Newberry from Oklahoma State, though. That guy is awesome. I love him.
Good.
He's just the old man in the Big 12. And not like Perry Ellis. I'm not saying age-wise. I'm saying he just has that old man game, that old man look. He looks like a guy named Kenny I used to play with in City League. I loved him.
Kenny Perry?
No, just Kenny.
No.
Just Kenny. No one knew his name. Kenny was his name, and no one knew his last name. Still playing, I think. Saw him a couple months ago.
Wow.
Anyway, number 7 against number 10, Texas Tech and TCU. This should be a quick pick, huh?
Texas Tech.
There you go.
TCU.
Correct answer.
Doesn't have it. So next year, I think Trent Johnson, it'll be the make or break season for Trent Johnson. One more year, and if he does well, he'll get an extension.
Yeah. What do you think? You want to share that story on the Wednesday night, the nickname that Wednesday night has?
Yeah, I won't say who came up with it,
right.
but everybody likes Trent Johnson, but it's that Wednesday night doubleheaders become known as the Trent Johnson Invitational because TCU's in it every year.
All right, if that is how it goes, I'll pencil you in here and we'll keep going real quick. Number 4, number 5, the early game on Thursday, Texas and Baylor. Tough matchup.
It is. I'm going to go Baylor just because Isaiah Taylor isn't right with that plantar fasciitis. Fasciitis. You never know when that's going to flare up on you.
Flare up.
Didn't look the same.
Yeah.
So I'll go Baylor here. Baylor's got some decent athletic ability.
Right. They always play well here too. They seem to make a nice little run. I agree with that pick 100%. KU, K-State.
KU.
Yeah, simple, right?
One team plays great at the end of close games. One team plays very poorly at the end of close games. Both teams are coached by former Illinois coaches.
Wow, exciting insight there. Good stuff. No, but really, of the 3 matchups or of the 4 matchups on Thursday, that's by far the most unimpressive in terms of competitive level and one team versus the other.
So it'll probably be the closest.
K-State. I mean,
the fans, right?
It makes
the fans will make for
atmosphere because everybody will be fired up about it. In K-State, their fans, their players, their coach, everybody will believe they've got a shot because
Purple
they
and
played
blue.
KU pretty tough a couple of times. So interesting. But I agree, KU. I think we both think they might roll too. I mean, it might not be close.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Number 2, West Virginia against Texas Tech, provided Mr. Invitational doesn't upset the Red Raiders. So West Virginia, Texas Tech.
I'm going to go – this is the hardest one on the board for me. I guess I'll just go chalk and go with West Virginia. They play tough defense.
Yeah. Real quick, that's an interesting matchup because Bill Self himself said he would have voted Tubby Smith to win Coach of the Year. And he said he would have voted Bob Huggins number 2.
Right.
For Coach of the Year. Personally, I would have voted Huggins myself. I think they were picked 6th, and they finished 2nd. They were right there most of the year. They beat Kansas. I like Huggins way more than Tubby, and I get Tubby. I think it's a good pick.
Well,
but
Tubby
I
was
like
picked
Huggins.
10th by the coaches. The writers always do a better job than the coaches. I had a vote I have a vote every year in the AP, and I voted Self Coach of the Year, Buddy Hield, as the Player of the Year, and I had Monte Morris, Frank Mason, Buddy Hield, Perry Ellis, and George Yang.
So, yeah.
I can't pronounce his first or last name, but I voted for him.
Big fan. All right, so you've got West Virginia. I do too. I mean, I think they've got something to prove, and I think they could still be playing for a number 2 seed in the tournament, which is absolutely worth playing for.
And they're a tough tournament team because, when they get in the NCAA tournament, because it's an unorthodox style.
Short turnaround.
They crash everybody and then press them as soon as they give up a defensive rebound. So it's a strange style,
awesome
but it works.
To watch, yeah, it does.
And it's a better style the first time you face a team than the second time because there's no simulating it, I don't think.
No, it's overwhelming. Absolutely. The last one is the most incredible, just in terms of where these teams are. Number 3, Oklahoma. Number 6, Iowa State. We already mentioned it, but who do you pick?
I'll pick Oklahoma just because they play at both ends of the floor, and Iowa State's very impressive offensively.
Yeah.
But defensively doesn't get it going.
I'm picking Iowa State. I think they felt good about how they played in Allen Fieldhouse. I think they feel good about where they're at. I think they've got a ton of talent. And that's another team that plays really well in this tournament year after year after year. And they'll bring some fans as
They'll
well.
bring a ton of fans, and that'll be exciting. So that should be a great game.
Fading a little bit.
Definitely.
You know, and that scares me because I thought a lot of the season that Oklahoma was the best team in the country.
Maybe it's their lack of depth.
Could be. They have next to no bench, and that's a problem. So let's finish it out real quick. You picked Baylor, and you picked Kansas. Who wins the semifinal between Baylor and Kansas then?
I'll go Kansas. I think that they have more composure down the stretch. Certainly they did in Waco.
Right.
And I think Medford is not really good in the composure department.
Fair enough.
And Frank Mason and Devontae Graham are, especially Frank Mason.
And it's in Kansas City.
And it's in Kansas
Huge
City.
advantage. I go Kansas as well. I had the same 2 teams. West Virginia, Oklahoma for you. West Virginia, Iowa State for me. Who wins your matchup? Great matchup.
Yeah, it is a great matchup. I'll go West Virginia. I think that they'll make Oklahoma even more tired by the way they play.
There you go. I like it. I picked Iowa State to beat West Virginia. Just one of those up and down sort of track meets. Iowa State can play offense, as you mentioned. So you have Kansas, West Virginia. I have Kansas, Iowa State. Winner?
I'm going to say West Virginia will have a mini upset against Kansas. They have more to play for. Kansas, in my mind, is already the overall number 1 seed.
Right.
Could they get passed by Michigan State? Maybe, I suppose. But West Virginia, as you say, is playing for seeding and maybe could get as high as a 2 seed if West Virginia is the Big 12 champs.
Yeah,
Who do you like in your matchup
awesome.
of Iowa State versus Kansas in the title game, which would be a rematch of last year's? Is that who beat them in the title game?
Correct. Yeah, I'm going to pick Kansas. I just think they're so red hot right now, and confident is the biggest thing. I thought it was cool. Another thing that Self said about getting to the final. If you get to the final, you might as well win it. Yeah, and I mean, of course, that sounds obvious, but what he's saying is it might be better to lose.
If you don't win it, you're better off losing in the Saturday game, Friday game.
Because then you get an extra day of rest, and if you're going to have to go play the game and get worn down 3 days and 3 games in 3 days, you might as well either win the game or not get to it. So
always
I like
a fun tournament.
It is. I can't wait. Kansas winner, West Virginia winner. Fair enough. Either way, you got KU in the final. Your primetime pick for the tournament of the Jayhawks is
Frank Mason.
Big time pick.
Taking care of business.
Fearless Frank.
Fearless Frank Mason. I'll take credit for that nickname.
Yeah, you should. I like it.
Hasn't caught on, but I'll take credit for it.
I'm going with his backcourt mate, Devontae Graham. I think the guy's confidence is, if this is the roof, there's the confidence.
Through it.
Yeah.
Wow. Thanks for the demonstration. I wouldn't have quite been able to picture it.
Well, it's a cliche. You've probably never heard it. He's just so confident right now. Loves the big shots. Loves the big moment. Has had a great year. And I think the cool thing about it, too, is you have Perry Ellis, you have Wayne Selden, you have Frank Mason. Those guys draw a lot of attention defensively from the other team. Devontae Graham gets a lot of open looks because of that. And every time he's in rhythm, he looks really comfortable. I like him to have a big time.
He gets better all the time. And if you like cliches, and you obviously do,
love them.
You should go to YouTube and look up Dick Van Dyke explaining why he's supporting Bernie Sanders. And he just throws a bunch of cliches in there, and it just doesn't make any sense. But speaking of Bernie Sanders, I hate to call out the Secret Service, but I snuck into the Bernie Sanders rally since he's the only presidential candidate in a fascinating year, visiting Lawrence. I'm not endorsing any candidates on this or any show.
Keeping it under the roof.
Enjoyed his speech. He's a great speaker. Left early to beat the traffic. I always criticize people who do that at games, but
left early
to beat the traffic.
4 of them.
Usually, it's just 3.
Good stuff. This is a purely honest question. I don't know. Is it Secret Service
I think so, probably.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know.
Maybe not, but it's security of some sort, and they were wanding everyone, so the line went on forever and ever and ever, and I just sort of assessed the situation, saw behind the porta potties there was a fence where they didn't one piece didn't connect to another, and I just had my back to them, and I just kept walking like I knew what I was doing,
and you did.
Yeah. And then left early to beat the traffic.
That's good stuff. I just didn't want the Secret Service to take a knock if it's not them. That's all.
Yeah, good point. Good point. Might not be the Secret Service.
Either way, it looks that way, certainly.
And whoever it was, if they see this, they're going to just wand me to death from now on.
Well, and they are going to see this, because this has been seen by people in all 50 states and 36 countries.
I wonder how many states it's been seen in. In fact, if you wouldn't mind, if you're from a state outside of Kansas, just put underneath what state you're watching this in, and we'll count how many states there are, and maybe even count how many electoral votes there are in each one of those states.
I see what you did there.
For no apparent reason other than that in presidential election years, Bill Self, dating back to 2000 with Tulsa, has gone Elite Eight, national title, national runner-up, and now it's 2016. You don't think this team is trending in the right direction when you look at that history for Bill Self in presidential election years?
Change we can believe in.
No, more of the same.
Oh, fair enough. Change from the last couple of tournaments, though. Fair?
Yes.
That's what the
absolutely.
hope is anyway.
Yeah, that's the hope and the change.
All right, let's finish it off. As always, most obnoxious man in sports this week. I can't imagine it has anything to do with the NCAA tournament, because there's just nothing obnoxious about that. Who do you have?
Not yet. Marquand Manuel is the Atlanta Falcons safeties coach. And during the NFL Combine, Marquand, who's a little young for a coach, a little inexperienced, made the mistake of asking Ohio State cornerback Eli Apple if he, quote, likes men. He questioned his sexual orientation. That question is not appropriate in any job interview in any walk of life.
Sure, yeah.
So we know that football can be kind of a caveman thing, but that's just a little too caveman. Marquand went through sensitivity training and apologized, and hopefully he learned a good lesson.
No doubt, yeah. I mean, they do say the Combine is, the look under the hood. You look at everything, every detail of every player.
Yeah, but I don't see how that's relevant.
Too far.
Yeah.
Obnoxious, I agree. My obnoxious man this week is LSU guard Ben Simmons. And
6'10" guard.
A little bit about what he did and a little bit about what he didn't do. But either way, he didn't take care of his business academically. His school then made him ineligible to be on the Wooden Award finalist list, which is 15 names. And Ben Simmons is absolutely one of the best players in the country. He will probably be the number one pick in the NBA draft. But he didn't do enough in the classroom for his own school to allow him to be on the list of the best players. That's obnoxious in its own right. When he was asked about it, he said, I don't know, I'm not too sure, but I believe I'm still the best player. So as long as I believe it, it doesn't really matter. It does matter. It's the entire fabric of what the whole thing is built on.
It is,
student-athletes playing basketball.
Except if you're the best player in the world and the NBA won't, best amateur player in the world.
Right.
And the NBA won't allow you to go directly from high school to the pros. He doesn't believe he needs an education. Didn't take care of the business in the classroom. Wooden Award did the right thing. And it's no sweat off of Ben Simmons' eyebrow, I believe is the cliche.
There you go. Fair enough. Either way, it's obnoxious. In my opinion, on his part, it's obnoxious.
Yep.
Just another thing that calls out the system, like you're talking about.
And I'd love to get Dick Van Dyke's opinion on this. I'd love to hear Dick Van Dyke weigh in with a bunch of unrelated cliches. You really do need to YouTube that.
What I would love is if Dick Van Dyke would drive to all 50 states and from each of the 50 states give his opinion with a cliche. That would kind of tie this whole episode together.
Awesome.
For Gary Bedore, I'm Gary Bedore. Thanks for checking out KU Sports Extra. God, it's good to be Gary.